Hi, I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're working on our giant pallet pumpkin, and this is a great big yard decoration. I wanted something that would stand out so the neighbors saw it when they drove by. So we're going to use a whole pallet for our pumpkin. We're going to show you from start to finish how we cut it, design it, paint it, and seal it. This is going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started. When you're working with your jigsaw, follow the manufacturer's instructions, use extreme care, be careful of your fingers, be careful of nails or other thing in the wood. You want to make sure that you know where those are so you don't hit them. Also, your knots are going to be a lot tougher to go through. Another thing that you want to use when you're also doing this is you want to wear eye protection. My first big pumpkin I made out of one complete big pallet. And the next one I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so I have kind of a set. But I was cutting the top part to his stem and didn't realize I didn't have him anchored to anything, so I had to come in and anchor him on the back. And you can do that, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're going to get more stability if you're anchored to your wood. So that's something to think about as we get ready to draw our pumpkin onto our pallet. I'm working on an old plastic table, and this is my spray table, my cut table, all kinds of things. And you want to do plastic, don't use an old glass one, trust me, I know from experience. So that's what I work on and just use it. But I've got a pallet, and you can see here we've got the two middle supports. And we've also got to think about, we've got to cut the back ones as well, and that way if you wanted to stick a rebar in the middle of it, it would stand up in the yard, or if you wanted to stand it straight up, it's going to have more support that way. So we want to keep those two main supports. You may have a pallet that's got one in the middle, and you would want to think about maybe doing three of them so you have that support, but also think about your stem up here. So what I did is I drew my stem, but I drew leaves on, so I'm anchoring onto the support with this one. I drew my stem down to here, and you want to have that upward out of the middle of that stem to give that pumpkin his round shape. So it's something to think about. And then we want to curve it a little bit on our edges here, but not too much. When I first did it, I had it more shaped like a heart, so I had to come back and reshape it. So I have that all shaped out on both sides. I'm going to use my jigsaw to cut it out. I'm using a wood coarse blade. I do so much with my jigsaw. I do a lot of things that people are amazed that I can do with my jigsaw. I love my jigsaw. If you are low on money, go to the thrift store and look for jigsaws. The older machines were made to last longer, so that's something to think about doing as well. So that doesn't hurt at all. But when I'm cutting, I want to think about, when I'm cutting from this one, I want to go what would be in between these spaces and then cut there and just keep on going. So I'm going to start on my right side. So I'm going to push down on this, and it presses, and that's what gives it the nice it doesn't kick back on you. You want to press nice and hard on that so it doesn't kick back on you. And then when we get up to this area up here, we've got to think about this support thing behind it. So we are going to have to kind of figure out how to cut. We may have to go all the way up there and cut on the side of this. So that's something to think about with our shape as well. So we're going to get started. I'm going to stop, move my pallet around where I can get to it so I can keep on working. So I jump from there, so I'd come across right about there. So I've come across and I've come up to that shape, so I'm going to come on this other side and come down, and I'm going to switch sides. Actually, I'm just going to make it work for me, right? And I forgot about my leaf, and I started to cut my leaf off here, but we'll just bring it up here and work there. So that's actually, I do not want to cut anything in here because that is my leaf. So what I'm going to do is come from this shape here. That's the top of my leaf. Now I don't want this too close to here because I don't want to lose that support on my leaf part there. So I'm not going to make it any smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting the rest of the side just the same way I did here, including the leaf, and finish him up. And when I come here, I'm going to jump from there to there so I don't get into any of this part here and all the way down. So I've cut it all out, and I want to keep this secure on both sides because see what happens even if you cut it on one side. So that's a reason we're keeping our leaves anchored on both sides with our stem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my jigsaw and I'm going to cut right along this line so that these guys are loose. And I have done a film using these extra little signs with my my fall wood signs. You can turn them into signs, so that's another video to check out and see how we've used that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of that off now. So I removed all of these pieces, and now you can see the 3 that I have left there, and I don't have to hit the 4th one, but we do have to cut it, both of those up here. So what I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to flip it over. And I just went and eyeballed it. You can draw it in if you want, if that works better for you. If you think that, and remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's in the back, and it's not going to show too much, and this isn't a perfect project anyway. So I think that looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of those. So I've cut all of these, and you'd rather cut these under than over, and as long as they're not sticking out, don't worry about it. This isn't supposed to be a perfect piece. So I'm going to cut in here now, and then also I'm going to separate it up on the top as well. So I have nice sign pieces up on the top. So I finished cutting all my little wood pieces. I got some great little sign pieces. I have 2 of these so far that are cut off. So those should be off of your piece now. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this last piece up on top here. And this can be a little bit tougher. If you have a different way to cut it with a saw, then go ahead and do that. So I'm going to bump up the top of this, and I'm actually going to remove this with a hand saw or whatever saw you find easier. Now that we've got our pumpkin all cut out, I'm going to lightly sand it. This isn't supposed to be a perfect project, but what I want to do is get anything that's sharp knocked down off the edges and just put a light sanding across it. I also want to get rid of any of my white lines so those don't show up when we go to seal it. we're going to seal our wood, and there is a reason that you seal the wood. It is so your paint doesn't absorb so much. Your wood is so absorbent. If you don't put the sealer on, it takes a lot of paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a wood sealer, and the brand right now that you will find at the craft store will be Delta, the cream coat, and a bottle about that size. I think it's kind of clear, and it will not be in with your varnishes. It's a sealer. It's not really a varnish. It will be more type in your wood products. You may even have to ask for it, but that is going to make a difference. You are going to put it on with a sponge brush. You're going to throw your sponge brush away when you're done. It doesn't come out, so you don't want it on anything else. So think about what you're putting it on with, under your table or things like that. So we're just going to put this right directly on. You're going to get some black off your sponge brush. I'm even getting more so because I'm using an older brush. Once it seals, you're just going to do a real light coat because the wood grain will come up with your sander again, and then we're going to start to apply our paint. So I've lightly sanded my wood again. I'm just going to put the basic lines that I need for my leaves and my stems so that you kind of know what not to paint orange. And I just went to Walmart, found the biggest thing of paint that I could, because this is going to take quite a bit. I'm using actually pumpkin, and I also found a roller brush, and we're just going to wet it, squeeze all the water out of it. I paid $1 for it. You can find it in your craft section. If you can't find it in your craft section, go over to the painting section and you'll find one there. That's the fastest way to put this on. Wood will really eat up your brushes. If you're not careful. I've got some gunk in this one because I'm trying to use up some older paint. And we're just going to roll this on. I've also just put my paint straight on and then ran my roller into that as well. So you're going to get kind of this rough texture. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to do 2 coats, and I'm only doing the top of the palette, everything except for the leaves and the stem. So I'm going to draw down into my pumpkin to make those ridges, and I'm going to come back and paint that stem in, and then also my leaves. And I'm going to go ahead and start to make the center part of my pumpkin, which will be the widest part. And we can play around with that. We don't have to leave that. And each one of these is going to start the top of our ridge for our pumpkin. So that's something to think about and kind of do. Now I'm going to base coat these guys pretty well because we want to cover up some of our orange and everything with those. So I'm going to be using a medium brown, and on this project any acrylic will do. Multi-surface or outdoor paint will work as well. I try not to give people colors, exact colors, because then they think that they can't do it unless they have that exact color and try to go match it up, and when they can just be using just a regular color. So that is one of my reasonings behind it. So I'm just going to take my medium brown now, and I'm going to just base coat in my stem all the way down with my ridges. And I'm probably going to do at least 2 coats. And I'm trying to think about this turning into a leaf color. We'll kind of look at that. We may adjust that a little bit more and turn a little bit more of that into stem. But that just kind of depends how that starts looking here. And we're only painting the top layer of this whole project. And it helps give it more of that rusty look as well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish coloring our stem, and we'll start on our leaves. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start on my leaves while my brown is drying. Now I've got these leaves so they look like they're kind of behind the stem. You may want to put one in front of the stem, and maybe we'll think about doing that with this one right here, because we've kind of got that guy coming. These are hard to kind of shape when you're working with that part there and making it just look so big. I think I'm going to leave it behind, but that kind of gives you an idea of things that you can do. And I'm going to be using like a medium foliage green or kind of a seafoam green, whatever kind of goes really, really well with your pumpkin. Kind of a lighter color green instead of a darker green here. And I'm going to do it right over on that side so that it looks like we're bringing that behind. And I'm going to go ahead and finish base coating both of those leaves. And they probably, this is covering really, really well. I might even only need one coat, but probably 2 coats minimum of that. And then we'll make sure we have our stem done too. And the fun part will finally begin. I did just one coat on my green and my brown. I got to go back and do a little bit more right around the edges, but that's fine. As you can see, this is not solid color, and where there's boo-boos in the wood, imperfections, I want those to show. I don't want to cover them up. That's what makes this so great. So now we're going to kind of come down where we started our points, and you can either meet these up exactly at the bottom, or we can have these off a little bit. And I think this time I'm going to try and make it off a little bit. First time I met them up, but I think I want to do this just a little bit different. The wood eats up your good brushes, so I'm using an old just craft brush or a kid's brush, or just ones that have the harder stipples, the real inexpensive brushes. I'm switching to my dark brown, probably a burnt umber. That seems to transpire about the same in everybody's colors. I'm going to take those white lines a little bit out of here. And we're kind of doing a dry brush method, meaning I don't have any water into my brush. And I'm kind of picking up my brush and I'm kind of blending it out a little bit to get these little bit lighter strokes. Get that white out of there. Don't really want to see that. And I'm kind of just want to stop, just bring that down just a little bit. You can do it darker in the middle, and then you can kind of walk it out to the sides just a little bit lighter. This is a fun piece. This is not supposed to be a stressful piece. So change it, make it your own, do what you want. Don't worry about it. This is not an expensive canvas. All you have invested is a little bit of paint and your time. So just think about that and just really play with it. If you have something that you like better, do that. Don't do it the way I said because I said so. Then just really, really have fun with it. On my last one, I also had the edges a little bit shaded. I'm going to see if I want to shade or just keep those highlighted. I think on this one I'm going to keep those highlighted because that's kind of where the sun would be hitting it. So again, we're going to do a darker in the middle, walk out, darker in the middle and walk out. And I'm going to stop there on that one. And then we're using just a little bit of paint. Just a little bit of paint. And get rid of my white lines here. Probably going to stop right about there. Walk that out a little bit. You always can come back and add more if you want to. So So just make your center a little bit darker. And I'm just removing, this is a white charcoal pencil that I'm working with. You could use pencil if you wanted to. We do have the white charcoal pencil at miriamjoy.com if you need any of those. But we're using very little paint, that's again, and no water in our brush. Just make sure your lines that go together match up. Make that one a little bit better. Okay, while I'm doing it, I'm going to move down to the bottom part here. And we're going to start these this way. Remember how I told you I didn't want to match these up? But again, we want to keep that center part though. And if you want to match them up this time, then go ahead. I'm going to do it a little bit different. And I'm going to darken this area up a little bit here because this is more shadow, this is more the bottom. And these are going to end up half the time matching up anyway. So walk those out. And I'm going to darken that area. Going to kind of give it that curl just like we did up at the top of our pumpkin as well. That's what's going to help shape that. Okay. Stand back, take a look at it. See if there's any areas you need to darken up and match up a little bit better. Whatever you feel. My other one, I think I have it quite a bit darker, but there, again, no right or wrong. No right or wrong. So I'm going to finish painting that stem up there, and we're going to put some dark on that. You also can use some bigger brushes like this, and if you wanted the smaller areas, you just turn it this length you want it. So again, I'm just going to load that up. I'm going to dry brush it. I'm going to be using like an apricot color. This is between the pumpkin and the yellow. So I want this nice and bright and wonderful. So I am going to just start in some of these areas where I'm going to highlight. I'm even going to come back and put yellow in here so it'll be even brighter. But I want some of these really wonderful colors in here. And I'm probably going to do this edge, this color. And if you, I actually want these kind of lines here. Because we're doing our highlight. Now I'm going to work around that seam a little bit there, or whatever you want to call him. So I want to keep some of this probably in this middle part. I'm going to keep it more towards the top except for the very center. And on this top part up here, I'm going to kind of make a C, so I'm coming up and around and down. And I'm going to bring this color down. I'm going to stop right about there. And you can just continue to play with this as much as you want. There is no right or wrong on this. But I want this bright and colorful. I don't want to have it all blend together. I want it to stand out. This is something in the yard. The more colorful, the better for yard decorations. So that's kind of how I'm thinking. Now the center one, I'm going to bring all the way down here. And we're going to put that yellow in the middle. You can even do this and just come back with that yellow over the top of that if you think those should be touching. And I'm going to bring that part there. So we have a little bit there. And I might come in with my smaller brush there and hit that top part. It's a little bit hard to hit. And then I'm going to do this outside part because that's where our reflection in the sun would be hitting it. I don't want to do too much at the bottom, just a little bit. I'm probably not going to come in with any yellow. I'll probably come in with a little bit of red there, just a little bit, but I want a little bit of reflective light there. I'm going to make these a little bit wider on the side. Okay, I'm going to switch to my smaller brush, and I'm going to go back up to this top area, and we're going to get those rounded out up here. So we want to give it that feeling of fullness so that it looks real like a big flumpy pumpkin. It's starting to look more like a pumpkin instead of a peach or an orange now. So, and you can see as it starts to dry, your colors go darker. So don't feel that if you need to come back and add some in there, you can. Okay, so we've got that going. I'm happy with that. Stand back and look at it. Sometimes walk out of the room and then come back and look at it. That's kind of something I always do because when I used to teach painting, we always said the toll fairy came, but it's just getting away from it for a while. So I'm going to go to yellow, and you can either switch to a new brush or you can just kind of dry your brush out the best you can and go into yellow. That's up to you. And I'm going to be using bright yellow. If you do wash your brush out, dry it really, really well, the best you can on a paper towel, and then rub it up and down your forearm. Your skin dries, your brushes out. It's the most absorbent thing that there is. So that's something to think about. So now we just want to come back in and we want to get our really pop of color, our yellow here. We're just doing a really highlighted colors. I don't want to do too much on the bottom here. I want to keep that more towards the top. But we want to make sure that we get a lot of this in this middle part. I'll come back in with my smaller brush in here in just a minute. I just can't stress enough of just having fun with it. I'll come back in those top areas now and hit those. Okay, I think I'm almost there with my yellow. I'm going to stop for a while and go do some other colors, and if I want to come back and do some more, I can do some more, but what I want to do is bring some red in now. So I'm going to stop and grab my red and we'll get started with the red color. We're not going to do a lot with the red. We just want to kind of warm it up a little bit. And so I'm just going to kind of do just a little bit near the bottom. Not more than halfway up. Nice and light on this one. And you can see I've used less paint, and by blending it out really a lot more, it's going to give it more of, not the brush strokes, but more blended in instead of so stark. And I'm just rubbing it out really well, and that helps with that. And like I said, we don't want a lot in here. Just enough. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of red in my stem as well. I'm going to pretend the sun is kind of shining down this way because we've got it at the top and the sides, but I'm going to make this more where the sun would shine, and I'm going to put this more of a shadow area, and I'm going to do a little bit of red in here. Not much. Just to help break up that stem. Okay, I think we're almost done with the pumpkin part of it. So, I gotta see how dry my thing is. That stem is still drying there. So I'm gonna go work on my leaves a little bit. I'm gonna float color. And I have a video on floating. I don't want to go into a lot of detail on that, so we'll give you the link. But if you didn't want to float, you can do the dry brush, but it's hard to get up right and against something like that. So that's the reason I'm going to float. So I've taken my brush out, and I'm going to dry it once and dry it twice, and then I should have just enough water in my brush. And I'm going to dip my brush. On this one, I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way through my brush, and I'm going to walk that color out until I'm going from lots of color to no color. And I am just going to come in here, color next to the pumpkin itself. And I'm using a dark, kind of like a forest green for this. And then I'm going to come up, and what this helps do is put that stem forward and the leaf back. If you ever want to kind of set something forward, that is the way to do it. I think I'm going to still try to dry brush maybe like the center of my flowers. We'll see about that in a minute. I don't know why my brown is giving me a hard time drying today. So we have that there, and I think I'm going to do some up that edge, and reload each time when you need to, and we'll do some up that edge because that's where your shadow would be. I don't want any people yelling at me telling I'm doing it wrong. This is just for fun. This is not to be stressed out about, to worry about how you got to do it right. This is just for fun. Okay, I'm going to go back to a smaller, one of my craft brushes that aren't real fancy. And we're going to try and put more of a middle in our leaf here. Okay. I think I'm even going to try just a touch of brown with that, just to help darken that up a little bit. You may want to go to a darker green, but I'm trying to kind of keep my colors all together, and I think we'll just darken it up with the brown. I think that looks really good. So now we want to go to a lighter green. So I'm using like a real light seafoam green or light mint green, and I'm doing the top of our leaves, and I'm doing right underneath that vein just a tad, not too much. But so where this would be hitting the light, we're going to have it there. And again, you can see I've really walked my color out before I hit it there, so there's not much paint going on. I think that would be the thing I would tell you the most is don't apply a lot of paint. You can always come back and add more, but it's hard to take off. So let's go ahead and get those done. Still waiting for that to dry just a little bit, and that'll be it. So I'm going to come in and float color one more time. I'm going to use my burnt umber, and I'm going to use it where the pumpkin meets the stem, the color down towards a pumpkin. And we'll darken this up. And we can even walk this color up a little bit. And we kind of just want to bring that dark part, and you can even make it wider than that. So it should go from a lot to nothing. Probably going to work that a couple more times. And then what I'm going to also do is I'm going to come in here now, and we're just going to highlight with our yellow that stem right where the sun would be hitting it. Just a little bit, not much at all. And we're also going to hit our this side with our burnt umber as well. You can float that up if you want, or we can dry brush this in. This is our shadowed side. And I'm probably going to do that all down there. So you're going from a lot to nothing. That's also going to give it more of that woodsy type of feel. And just play with that a little bit until you get the look you want. But wasn't painting it so much easier than preparing it? I think it's a lot of fun. Can't wait to put it in the front yard. Neighbors are going to be envious. So get yours done and have fun with it. So we're going to talk about varnishing it, but I want to let you know I did come back and put some veins in my leaves. Just to help break up those and make that look better. You could have even put a leaf in the front that might even help as well. A cutout one would be fun too, so that's something to think about. If you had the stem like I have on the other one, you could tie a big raffia bow around it. That would be really awesome as well. So we're going to varnish it, and I'm just going to varnish these front side because it's not something I'm going to leave out all year long, but I want it durable in the weather. And I'm also going to varnish the top up there, up on the edge where the rain would hit the most. So I'm going to do this varnish up on top. I'm going to use polyacrylic. I'm going to use satin or matte because I feel this shouldn't be real glossy, so whatever you feel. I'm going to use the wide brushes again like that we were using in painting our pumpkin. If you see your brush lines, you're not using enough varnish. It should not be dripping, but you should be putting enough varnish on that it settles nice and even, that you're not getting your brush lines, that you just don't have that little amount. I'm going to do at least 5 coats. I have some people that do 15. That's up to you. It's a personal opinion. Another one that you could use if you're putting outside that was really durable is your marine varnish, but that is not water-based, so that's something to think about. This is water-based. It's a nice cleanup. Make sure it's really dry before you put the varnish on. It shouldn't take too long here. We're almost ready to probably start varnishing it, but we'll good to go on that. And I'm going to, again, just to remind you, I'm going to use rebar. I'll probably put one in the middle on each side right there and hammer it down into the ground so it doesn't show up at the top, to hold that nice and sturdy. And you probably, depending on your ground, how far you want to go into that to keep those standing up straight. Well, I hope you really enjoyed that. I really like using the pallets. Of course, they're very cost effective. You can't beat that. And just making these big, wonderful yard decorations that everybody can see. If you ever have a question, please email us at art@miriamjoy.com. Give us a thumbs up and share our videos so we can continue to grow. Make sure you look for them. We've got over 650 currently, and we're always trying to bring you new ones each and every season. God bless.